Hello all, and welcome back. It's Ryan with Dark Winter Moon Boston, and today I wanted to talk to you about synchronicities and dreams, how you know that a deity is calling you. So, in my experience, I've had many questions about finding a god to follow, and usually my response is, well, they'll find you when they're ready. It's just a matter of knowing what to look for. So, first of all, synchronicities. So, if you don't know what a synchronicity is, it's a seemingly coincidental event that turns out not to be coincidental. So, for example, in the case of a deity trying to reach out to you, maybe you start to see crows everywhere. You see actual crows. They're cawing at you seemingly, and you read about them in books, and you see them online, and your friend randomly mentions a crow, and they just keep coming up, and it's more than can be accounted for by sheer coincidence. That's a synchronicity. And if that symbol happens to be, like the crow, related to a particular deity, then you may be being contacted by a deity, or that deity. So, another way that gods approach you is through your dreams. And to illustrate that, I would like to share with you my own experiences about how I started following the god Apollo, bless his wisdom. So, it started in dreams. One night I had this dream that I was at this house way out in the country, and I was standing on the back deck, and everything was pitch dark, including the sky. I don't even remember if there were any stars. What I remember is just darkness. All I could really make out was that I was standing on a deck because I could see the shadow of the railing, and also I could look out over the backyard of this house and tell that there was a tree line, that there was a wood that was there because I could see the silhouettes of the trees. Um, and as I continued to look out over this lawn, I saw coming from right above the trees this bright orange streak, and it raced all the way from one end of the sky to the other. And it looked almost like an orange comet or an orange shooting star, except it wasn't behaving like what I had seen shooting stars do in the past. It was going, like I said, literally from one end of the sky to the other. And this just kept happening. And I looked up and I was like, wow, this is what's going on, you know? Um, and so then, as I continue to watch, the sun started to rise above the trees. And it was weird though, because the sun wasn't changing the color of the sky. The sky didn't turn blue, it remained a dark pitch black. And the sun didn't shed any light on anything. Everything around me remained black and silhouetted in the darkness. Um, and the sun slowly rose, like I said, and I was just looking at it, and then it started to do like a loop to loop in the sky like this, and then all of a sudden it went and shot off across the sky, and I just remember thinking, what the hell is going on? Like it, and there's just this feeling of like terror and awe, and then I woke up, and I remember thinking that wasn't natural. And intuitively, I thought, well, you know, I have read about gods visiting in dreams. I kind of felt that maybe I was being visited by Apollo, bless his wisdom, but I wasn't absolutely certain. So a few days later, in my meditations before my altar, I decided to try to reach out to Apollo to ask him for guidance. And I very much got the sense of the cold shoulder from him. Like he was like, why are you talking to me? Like, we don't really have a connection. And I was like, that's strange. I was pretty clear that you sent me a dream, but okay, no offense. And so I was a bit discouraged by that. So I just put it aside. Um, didn't really pursue it much anymore. And I think it was like probably around 2 years later, I had another dream. And in this dream, I was I had been traveling with friends, and I found myself in this old country, kind of Mediterranean-like villa that obviously was a generational home for a family, and that family had offered to host me and my traveling companions, and so they had left me in their library to wait while the rooms were being prepared. So if you know me, you know that my one of my favorite places to be is in a library. So I was like, oh wow, what books could I find here? This is so cool. And I remember just looking around the room and seeing all the stacks with books on them, and books were everywhere, and there was all this comfortable furniture, and it just felt really warm and welcoming and inviting and comfortable and lived in. It felt like a home. And I remember looking off to my right, and there was this raised seating area that was obviously meant for reading. It was very comfortable. There was a table over there and chairs and like cushy sofas. So anyway, I was walking around this room, this library, and just kind of looking at everything. And all of a sudden behind me, I heard a noise like something had fallen and hit the floor. And so I turn around, and there's a book just sitting in the middle of the floor, and I'm thinking, where did that come from? There's no tables or shelves around where it could have fallen off of. And as I get closer and I'm looking, I notice that this book is bound in this kind of medium brown leather, and it has this rich gold embossing on the front cover, but for some reason I can't read what the front cover says. And as I'm continuing to stare at this book, it opens of its own accord, and the pages start to turn by themselves. And I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? I'm like just amazed by what's happening. And then as I'm watching, the pages start moving faster and faster, and then all of a sudden they stop. And written down the page vertically is the word Apollo in bold, bright golden letters that are just shining. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then as I continue to stare at the book, light starts to pour out of it. And it starts getting brighter and brighter and brighter until all I can see is the light. It's like it has filled my mind and my being, and all I can experience is the light all of a sudden. And it just keeps building and building in intensity. And then all of a sudden it becomes so intense that I feel myself in the dream start to fall backwards. And then I'm vaguely aware of feeling myself fall on my back onto the floor. And I'm literally smitten and laid low by the intensity of this light, just filling my being. And so then, after what seems like just an uncalculable amount of time, I like there was no sense of time at that point. I start to hear voices. And I know my eyes are open, but I still can't see anything, so I've literally been blinded by this light. But these voices start to rouse me, and so I start to pick myself up off the floor, and then my sight returns. And I look over to that raised seating area that I had seen before. And my mom and a friend of mine at the time are sitting there, and they're talking to each other. Only I can't understand what they're saying. So I go over to them, and I'm like, did you guys see what just happened to me? And they completely ignore me. And so I'm like, well, that's weird. And so I repeat myself, and I still get ignored. So several more times I repeat myself, and then I get so frustrated that I say, would you just listen to me? And then both of them, in unison, snap their necks around and are looking at me. And their eyes, pupil, white, everything are completely and totally this glassy black, like obsidian. And I feel chills rack racking all around my body as I suddenly sit up in bed and inhale. Um, and I'm like, wow, that was intense. That was definitely a very obvious visitation. And so, again, within a few days, I sit down and I'm meditating and I try to reach out to Apollo, bless his wisdom, and ask for guidance. And I get pretty much the same response, like, why are you talking to me? What's the deal? And so I'm totally confused. And so at this point, I start talking to other people about it. I start talking to my witch friends. They don't really have any experience with this, and so they really can't help me. And I'm looking at resources, trying to read books, trying to figure out what's going on, and I still don't really get any answers. So then I go to witch camp, winter witch camp. It's a reclaiming camp in Wisconsin. And while I'm there, I have the opportunity to have dinner with one of the elders in that community. And so I feel compelled to tell him about my experiences with dreaming about Apollo. And he listens intently, and then I ask him, I don't know what to do. What should I do next? And he's like, well, honey, he's made the first move. Now it's your turn. You need to take him out to dinner. You need to woo him. You need to do something that shows him that you're serious, that matches the overture that he's made to you. So, not long after I get back home from Winter Witch Camp, I decide to go out and I buy an altar, or a table for an altar, and I buy a beautiful piece of fabric to put over it for an altar cloth. And there are a few other things that I had that to me felt like they matched Apollo, and that he would like them. Certain essential oils, certain witchy items I already had, and I get a very beautiful ornate candle, and just things that I think that he would like. Just using my intuition that I think that he would like, and that definitely paid off. And so the really cool thing is that worked, and I have had a years-long relationship in personal growth and guidance because of the connection that I was able to form with Apollo. It just took a while, and a lot of it was on me because I was being really dense about it. So, yeah, with all of that said, when a deity is reaching out to you, it's usually pretty clear. And I think one of the reasons why I got the cold shoulder from Apollo, especially in his case, is because there's a certain formality with many of the gods that by which you want to approach them if you want to form a connection. So in my case, Apollo had reached out to me in dreams, but then the ball was in my court. It was up to me to do something that was equal to him reaching out to me, and something that showed that I was serious about pursuing a relationship with him. And there's a sort of, how do I put this? A sympathy between you and the deity that calls you generally. And what I mean by that is that in a lot of ways, I already embody many of the characteristics that Apollo is said to have. And so I think that that's helpful. And that's one of the reasons he called me, is because we had some similar characteristics. And it also, though, in order to really form that connection with him, I had to follow the breadcrumbs that were laid down for me. So what I mean by that is the dreams were each breadcrumbs, and they each kind of nudged me a little further in the direction of getting to the point where I could find the information I needed to connect with him. But I think ultimately it came down to me not being ready until that point, until circumstances conspired to bring me to a place where I was with the person that could give me the information that I needed in order to make that final step and make a commitment to Apollo. So, with that said, that is my story, and yeah, if a deity is reaching out to you, the things to take away from this is that it'll usually happen when you're ready, but also when they're ready as well. And if you approach that with an open heart and an open mind, and you allow yourself to be open to the dreams and the synchronicities, then eventually you'll get to the point where you're ready and they're ready to form that relationship. So, well, everyone, I hope that this talk has been interesting and helpful. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when my next video is coming up.